Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad you joined us again this week for another great podcast. I told you my goal in this third quarter is to find guests that's going to make a difference for you, that's going to make a difference for your business. And today I think I found that guest again that's really going to help you as a leader of your business to become better, because when you become better, it really helps your family as well as your team that you have on your team. So Brian, it is great to have you here, but would you share with our listeners, what problem will you help them solve?
Gary, it's a pleasure to be here with you. The conversation I'm excited to have with you today is a discussion around how do we continue to intentionally develop our teams, pour into them, realize some of the things that they need that's going to make our businesses stronger and ultimately make our lives better because of the intentionality and leaning into that. So how do we approach our teams and how do we do that better?
No, I'm going to love this conversation because Brian and I are buddies some, and we've had some conversations already. But today I've got with us Brian Lawrence. He's a dad to four, a husband to one, and he's a follower of Jesus. And he's the founder of Winsight Leadership. Brian, it is great to have you on the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
No, the honor's mine. Thanks for having me.
Well, we've been wanting to do this for a while because both of us are in the same similar line of work of helping people really find that leadership and move forward. So instead of the first question I was going to ask you, I really want you to just define, if you would, when I say the word leadership, what does that mean to you?
It's funny you say that, Gary. I was just on a conversation with a guy coming back from a meeting this morning, and I might have a different definition of it than other people might. And I think that we overlap in it. Leadership commonly is brought into a business sense. When you think leadership, you're thinking people talking from a stage around business development and teams and employees and revenue numbers and growth. And I see it a little differently. I see leadership as any situation that you're in that you are leading somebody else and that you are acting in a way that is going to usher and guide and encourage and empower them to be better. And so much so is that I look at leadership as the leader has the leadership of self, how they're doing that with their development, the leadership of their family, but also their business. I know that you and I are on the same page of, and to the extent that we're only looking at business, I believe that we're missing a huge opportunity in our impact. So leadership is a whole life thing for me, and
Yeah.
it's leading other people.
Yeah, I love that you say that, because you and I, that's where we do match up. Because first, you got to start with yourself. And that's one reason I wanted you on this quarter, because I'm really saying I'm working on the business owners, because most of my people here are business owners or entrepreneurs in business. And the
Mhm.
challenge is they'll do anything for that business. I was the same way, but I almost lost everything because I was doing that and not realizing what was most important. And you said it in your bio, a very short bio, but he said he's a dad to four and a husband to one first before he said anything else. And that becomes the key. And that's why I thought we needed to start there, because they know your foundation and where your gifts come from. So let's kind of build on that. We know we're talking about them, but a good leader also, the key is really creating a healthy team, because when they create that healthy team, then that gives them really more capability to spend more time with their family and the things that are most important to them. So, what does it mean really to have a healthy team, and how can we go about really trying to create that in our organizations?
So a healthy team to me, and I'll admit that I have ulterior motives when I say healthy team. To me, a leader, they're looking at their family, like you just said, and healthy and health a lot of the times comes in the ability to be able to trust one another, to be able to speak candidly, to have healthy conflict, talk about the right type of things, and not immediately go to frustration or reading between things that aren't there. A lot of the times, if we're looking at the unhealthy side of things, it might be easier to define healthy by looking at unhealthy. Unhealthy people protect themselves. They don't look into what other people need. They don't see how their words or actions are going to affect other people. And it's really a, hey, sorry if that is not good for you, but that's on you. So a lot of healthiness really is, if we distill it down, others awareness. And it is the self awareness to be able to see how you impact those around you and really growing in that.
Yeah, I think that's huge because let's talk about that a little bit because for some, they've heard this term self awareness all the time,
Mhm.
but they're still not moving forward to really make those changes that they need to make. And I know I had that challenge early in my career, man. It was all about me and it was only about me. Luckily, I did enough self development that I've learned from that side of it. But what's some ways that people can really become a little more true to their self to understand their self awareness and the challenges it's creating for their team?
Well, I know that I'm going to say a word that's going to make people go roll their eyes, but like I'm a huge fan of personality assessments. Of There are so many good tools out there these days that talk to different parts of, well, how do I tick and how do I work and where do I find joy and what's a personality of mine that's been God given. And a couple of the ones that I really enjoy are, DISC and Enneagram and Working Genius and Myers Briggs, and there's the Giant Five Voices. Like, there's so much good stuff out there, but a lot of it is meant to not be prescriptive as much as it is to tell a story. And where I see self awareness never really has a chance to start, Gary, is, I mean, people never take the time to sit there and say, like, well, how am I made up? Like, how do I tick? Uh, I know for a fact that I like to think that I'm more self aware than I actually am. And
Just
between
ask
the
our spouses,
assessments,
right?
oh my gosh, ask our spouses, ask the people around me, like, "What can't I see?" They're like, "How much time do you got?" Like, there's so much that I don't see, and that's the second thing, is that assessments can only get you so far. Surrounding yourself with loving people that are willing to be able to tell you that last 10% of truth, and I'll put the caveat here that you've given permission to speak candidly with you and hurt your feelings.
Yeah.
Um, if I don't know somebody, I'm not going to be as receptive for them to say, "Hey, let me tell you something about you." But if I go up to a handful of people and I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to give you the keys to my heart, and I want to know if I have any blind spots and in areas that I can't see, and I trust you to say it to me, even if it hurts my feelings, because I know that you only want to see the best of me." Those are two big things that I would say to start with if you're looking to go down that path.
Yeah, I think you're right onto it. And it really becomes that willingness to know thyself. Because
Mhm.
let's be honest, we're going to talk to men here. And if there's any ladies listening, I'm not saying you don't have it, but I can tell you from the men's side of it. And Brian and I are in a mastermind together, and it's men only. And just like women have women only sometimes mastermind groups and stuff. And men a lot of times will put, and I'm not saying women don't do this, but we put a mask on with people. We show people one side of us, but really we're a different side, and we think we have to have that mask that's on. And a lot of people are not won't be authentic. So the first thing I think people have to do as leaders is they have to say first, am I willing to show my true self? And I don't care which way you think you are. If you think you're even a bad person, by you showing your true self and having that empathy to others of that, it's going to make a difference to them. And I love what you say, of figuring out what assessment it is for you, because it's about an assessment because it really lets you know them. But what I found out in so many assessments, when you start to know about others, you become better communicator with those others too, because it's like, oh, now I understand why my spouse doesn't see it the same way I do. I mean, I get a good idea, Brian, and man, I'm ready to go. She's the type, she's an S on the desk side of it. She's got to hear it and think about it and give it some consideration and think about it a while before she's ready to just jump in and say, oh, yeah, that's a great idea, honey. Let's do it and stuff. But I didn't know that early in my career. And I'll tell you, I've had challenges even later in the career because if I get excited about something, I want to go. But she actually is a benefit to me because she becomes the brake. So when we talk about those leaders in their business, how can they really become healthier? And that's what we're talking about now. In that, how can we continue to keep them thinking about they become healthier? First, thinking about themselves, knowing thyself, but what's some other things that you would think really will help our leaders become healthier that's going to help their organization? And when we say organization, Brian and I both are kind of saying your home. You don't call it organization, you call that family, but it's an organization, it's a unit. In the same way, the people that work for you, they're a unit and it's an organization too.
So something I'm going to say something that's going to probably make some people listening feel uncomfortable, and it's going to feel really soft and squishy. So for anybody listening, sorry in advance. Uh, one of the best things, honestly, that anybody can do is the first step of it has to be coded in a vulnerability based trust and a willingness to be able to go first from the leadership side of things, and the willingness to be able to say, hey, I've got warts, I've got wrinkles too. Because again, looking at the opposite side of things, one of the biggest and fastest way to be able to put a chasm in between you and somebody that you're leading or somebody that you're looking to grow in influence with is to put on the mask and the facade that you were just talking about and saying, I have it all together and I'm trying to make sure that, well, we can get rid of your problems. The reality is, we all have things that we stumble over, that we have struggles with, that we don't do well. And everybody sees it. Like nobody's hiding it. And if you think you are, you're not. You're not hiding it well. To be able to come out to your team, to your to your kids. Gosh, I've had to apologize to my kids so much in the way that I respond, and the way that I get big and say, "Hey, Dad, sorry. I never saw that." But to be able to enter into the danger with them and say, like, I don't have it all together, and I don't want to give you the impression as your father that I do. The same's true in the leadership side of things. People are looking to you for guidance and direction, absolutely. But to come in and say, hey, the way I responded to that could have been better. I was just meeting with a client over the weekend, and they had to look at their team and say, the way that we rolled out this initiative was horrible. We didn't have good communication around it. And as a result, it brought around a lot of confusion. We're sorry. By doing that, they then lowered the guards of those people around them and says, okay, they can make mistakes too. You're giving me permission to make mistakes and to figure things out as well. So vulnerability, if I can take the long-winded answer, uh, be willing to go first if you're the leader and show them that you're a person too. Man, you're going to invite them into a whole different conversation.
Well, and truly what happens is when you give that vulnerability, that trust just goes up. And, trust is like
Absolutely.
a bank account. You make deposits and you make withdrawals. And, when you have and you're willing to share the challenges, the things that's going through, that just allows that trust to go up. And that other people are willing to help you in those areas. So I think that's so important. So I appreciate you hitting on that. We're going to take a short commercial break, but we're going to come back and have more information. So please stay with us. Here's the short break. Are you a business owner striving for balance in your life? Ready to find the answers that are keeping you from reaching your goals? We created the Business Owner's Life Domain Assessment Quiz to help business owners find clarity. You can take our free assessment and unlock what is holding you back. This assessment will gauge your well-being in health, relationships, business, personal goals, and finances. By responding to a few thought-provoking questions, you will gain clarity on what truly matters for your success and fulfillment. Receive your free personalized life domain score, revealing your strengths and areas for improvements. With this knowledge, you will be able to make informed decisions to enhance your well-being and thrive in all aspects of your life. Don't miss this opportunity to excel in your personal and professional endeavors. Take the free Business Owner's Life Domain Assessment Quiz now and unlock your path to a more fulfilling and balanced life as an entrepreneur. Just go to show notes and click the link, Business Owner's Life Assessment. It's free. And now back to the show. Well, I love what you talked about that because having that vulnerability we talked about increases that trust, really gives us more emotional deposits. It's kind of interesting. I just did a short meditation before our podcast. Brian, I try to do them because I'm cutting several podcasts at a time. So I'm very present with every guest. And in that podcast, I was talking about how you have to have a 3-to-1 ratio, meaning 3 positives for every negative that comes out. Well, think about that in the workplace. And they talk about high performing teams. High performing teams get more praise than critiques. And I'm not saying dust off and be the Pollyanna leader. But the only thing is are you that type of leader that you're creating a healthy environment, a healthy culture with your organization? And are you giving praise to others and seeing that? So I'm just kind of curious from your standpoint, what do you see and what would be the benefits you think of if we're willing to do that, that we're going to create more of a healthy organization?
It's funny these days, I see it all over LinkedIn. I see it all over like the business space of the how do you grow and how do you develop? And there's no shortage of information on like, well, here's what you need to do in the workplace, and here's what you need to do in the marketplace. And I see, and I'm not immune to it, but so much of an attraction to like, here's the 2 things you need to do, here's the 3 things you need to do, here's the formula for creating this stuff. And there's so much good stuff out there, Gary. So I don't want to like rain on it, but I think it's a lot more simple than that. In the leadership side of things, it's back to the whole like, hey, just treat people well, communicate with them, don't hide them in the dark when something's going on. Like, trust that you've hired people that you can talk to, and if you can't talk to them openly or you can't share things with them, like evaluate why not. But it doesn't take a whole lot to be a person to somebody else. And where I think a lot of leadership and a lot of business gets in trouble is that there's so much of a, well, you can share this, but you can't share that. But if you share enough of this, it's going to make up for what you can't do there. And it turns into a formula. And when people are being responded to formulaically, they feel it. When I know you're trying to hit a quota of nice things to say to me, it doesn't feel genuine. Now, so that doesn't mean that sometimes you don't have to write yourself a note that says, "Hey, remember to tell your wife your hair looks good," because I didn't realize I'm not going to notice it, but I know she's going to get a haircut. But there's something about like making those decisions of I'm going to be the kind of person that notices people, that makes it an intentional purpose to say those things to those people, and to communicate in a way that doesn't leave them in the dark. Like the principles are probably going to dictate the actions that you should take more often than, well, I need to formulaically do something.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And I think the key is being very specific, but recognizing them. Because sometimes as business owners, we get so busy, we get in our own day to day, we don't even recognize the things in front of us. I mean, I will tell you early in my career, and we're going to kind of gear it a little bit to life now, is, I didn't see some of the things that my wife was doing, and I would never give her praise or gratitude to it. And now I've changed that, and it just changed the health. That I can be very specific. Hey, honey, I really appreciate you taking care of the meal tonight. I really enjoyed our meal that we had. And, those small little things. And you just got to think the same thing in the business. Somebody takes care of it. And you can think as an employee, you think, oh, hell, that's what I'm paying them for. But when you think like
Mm.
that, you're not going to create a healthy environment with your team. And that becomes so important there. So let's talk a little bit about as we do this in pursuit of our team and really keeping that health impact in there. How does that, we talked a little bit about it there, is how does that impact those other areas in our life that's going to make a difference for us?
So this is the fun conversation that, again, we've had many in like hallway conversations around stuff like this, but it's where I see it is unexplainably connected, this whole leadership idea when it comes to all of your life. Because, and I'll tell a lot of my clients this too, is the development that you're having in how do I develop my team and how do I communicate? What does it look like to have healthy conflict and allow there to be a focused and intentional effort towards a common goal that can be used in all of your life. And the thing that I will not so shyly tell them is, we're here to talk about business and leadership, but in no uncertain terms, I want you to take this and apply it at home too. Because to say I'm intentionally pursuing conversations, we know in business that if we don't have routine one-on-one meetings or meetings of casting vision or casting direction, our team's going to lose their focus and lose their direction, and they're going to wonder if they're doing a good job. If we don't have those same conversations at home about what are we doing for this season, what are we doing for this summer, and our expectations being met, and if I'm not hearing from my wife like, hey, what do you need me to be doing, and am I doing the things that you want me to be doing, we're going to drift. And in both scenarios where there's a lack of communication, I think it's been said before, people usually put in place the worst case scenario rather than believing the best. And a lot of it, again, the overlap is just so applicable. So much so is that when I'm talking to people about leadership and team member issues in their work, I'll usually joke and say, all right, hear my heart. I'm not calling your team members children, but, and there's usually a parallel, like they need affirmation, they need clarity, they need you to be able to tell them that you're proud of them and that they're doing the right thing, and they need your guidance. So with more time, and I don't want to bore people, but it is so black and white, so across the board, to be able to say, if we're talking leadership, use it in both places because it's going to apply.
Yeah. And I think that becomes the real key is really realizing it applies in both areas. And I thought, well, as you were talking about that, one thing that clicked into my head is about kids. You know, think about how kids work if you really give them routine. Yours, you're younger, mine are older and stuff. I went through this stage. But man, when they were in routines, and summer kind of throws off routine sometimes. We're in that third quarter, and some people are starting to get back to school now and things of that nature. But they get a little bit off of those routines and stuff, but they fasten well. Well, think about that for yourself. How much it makes it easier for them if they have some sort of routine, or sometimes we call them, and we call them habits. And there's things that we can do consistently to make those habits and make us a better performer and stuff. And could you share a little bit about your beliefs in those areas?
As far as habits are concerned, kind of
Yeah.
like the importance of them,
Yes.
y- I believe that nothing good ever accidentally happens.
Mm.
You're
Yeah.
not going to
Bye.
accidentally, you're not going to stumble on success. You're not going to stumble into being a good parent. You're not going to stumble into being a good spouse. You're not going to just wake up one day and people say, hey, those things that you've been unintentionally doing, they really made a big difference. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't, but very seldom will they. And the conversations of habits, I know I listened to, Craig Rochelle of Life Church out in Oklahoma. He's got an incredible leadership podcast. And he says something to the effect of, intentional people or professional people, do consistently what, unsuccessful people do occasionally. And when it comes to the habit side of things, my mindset really is because we're not going to accidentally show up and do it, back our way into what are the outcomes and the desires that we want to be true. How do I want my marriage and my parenting and my business to be? And start to do the backwards planning to say, all right, well, what are the things? What are the factors that are going to allow that to be? What are the relational connection points that are going to yield the outcome? And then back your way into like, all right, what are those habits? What are those rhythmic routines that I can now put in place into a weekly thing? Case in point, one of the things that means the most to me is that I've got four little boys, 9, 6, 3, and 1 at the recording of this. And an intentional thing for me is that I want to raise good men that love Jesus. As a result, I know that's not just going to happen. So my wife and I years ago put into a place that every single Wednesday we have a what we call a little boy date night. And one of us pairs up with one of them to go out and do something. We might get a crumble cookie. We might go get a shake somewhere. We might just go walk at the park and like throw balls. But we know that with a larger family, there's a really good chance that we could miss one of them and miss the personality and who God made them to be And as a result, if we want that closeness down there, we're putting in the time and effort here, knowing that it's going to hopefully yield the fruit that we're hoping for. So that's, again, just an example of how it shows up in our life, in our day to day.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that because that makes a difference. And I think you have a quotable quote there because I think I wrote it down if right. Nothing good ever happens accidentally. And that is so true and stuff. You got to be intentional. You got to create some habits and stuff on that side of it. And part of the reason I share that is because I'm a believer in habits. Habits, we have good habits and bad habits. But if we want to change something, if we want to change ourselves, it's about creating those habits and disciplines that allow us to do that. And I know we're kind of coming up on that time. Always when I get a great conversation, the time goes really quick. But you have a resource for them that you're willing to give our listeners and stuff. And I think this is very practical, what we just talked about. I think it's called Be More Effective at Work and at Home, 8 Habits for Family First Business Leaders. Can you give them just a snapshot? If they subscribe to that and get that free resource, what are they going to get from you?
Absolutely. Well, again, the whole idea of Winsight Leadership is that we were founded because in 7 or 8 years of working with small business owners and leaders, I saw them winning at work, and in side conversations we were having, I saw them admitting to their marriages falling apart or them not knowing their kids or their health being like deteriorating. So one of the things that I started our business off of was, all right, how do we take that whole approach for self, family, and business? And this resource is literally 8 things that I do and subscribe to, and in practical steps that you can take in saying, I don't want to just be a statistic of a business that works and a family that doesn't. And for goodness sakes, I don't want to be somebody who looks back at the end of their life with regret that says, I wish I would have started doing things sooner. So, for wherever you are on your journey, this is something that I hope can encourage you to start being intentional and some of those habits you were just talking about.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with our listeners. I'm going to tell you it's on our site. We're going to have that where you can just click on it and stuff. So just go to our website there. It's Be More Effective at Work and Home, 8 Habits for Family First Business Leaders. You're going to be able to click that, share your email, and Brian will send you that information that's available to you. Also, I want you to know Brian's website. It's winsightleadership.com. Again, go click on it. You're going to just have to click on it because I know everyone's busy. They can't write it down right now anyway because they're either exercising, they're doing something, cutting the lawn, raking the lawn, whatever it is. They're active people because we know our business owners are, or you're driving into work right now listening to this podcast. So we appreciate you being here. So we have those easy links for you to be able to reach out to Brian. Brian, before I let you go, I ask every guest this question. And that question is, what's your best advice you would give to business owners?
Yeah. The best advice that I would give to business owners is to be intentional and re-choose your yes when it comes to what you want things to look like, what you want your life to be, what you want your family to look like, how you want your relationships to be. A lot of things that I see that get in the way of small business owners are that we accidentally find success and we accidentally start moving at such a pace that one day we look up and we don't know where we've come from or where we're going. The advice that I would give you is if you choose where you want to be now and you choose the direction, it's going to make the yeses and nos that you have to make to get there a lot easier and a lot clearer to go.
That is great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. Please check out Brian's website, winsightleadership.com. He does some masterminds, he does some coaching. Great resource to have. Brian and I have become close friends and kind of been talking back and forth, and we don't feel we're competitors and stuff on that side of it. And that's where he's and I brought him in because he's got such great knowledge that he can share with you. So please check him out. He's also on LinkedIn and YouTube. We're going to have all that in show notes for you also to be able to get those resources. Brian, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Again, the honor was mine. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to leave you with always an action. What's that action? What can you do? I would tell you, get Brian's resource because you have some habits you need to put in place. You've listened to the end of this for a reason because you know, oh gosh, that was me. And I understand that because I was that person before when I sought out help and was needing that. So go get his resources, start there and see what habits do I need to put in place, because it's not just being a great leader in your business. It's also about being that leader in your home. And when you do that, that's truly a win-win. And it really creates an environment that you're going to enjoy. I just got back this summer with a trip with my family to Greece. My children are now 25, 23, and 21. Of course, Dad paid for the trip and Mom, we paid for the trip. So they helped to go there too. But they wanted to go and be with us. And that's what I want to create for you. You don't want to be where your kids no longer know you and they really don't want to be around you. And there's some song out there, I can't think of the name, but that they don't know you anymore. So when it comes time that you finally have time, they don't want to have that time with you. So I encourage you and I challenge you, find that what you need for your family as well as your business and become that authentic leader. And Brian Lawrence said this, so we have to put that down. He said, nothing good ever happens accidentally. So keep that in mind. Make it a great day and come back next week and we'll have another great guest. Thanks for joining us.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.